So, hey, if this is going to be up on your YouTube channel, do you want to kind of lead this one? Because you probably know way more about the show than I do. I just watched it on a whim.
So, okay. Welcome to a non-brand conversation between Daniel and myself, Tony, where we talk about WandaVision, the first Marvel television show that comes directly from the MCU, not to be confused with Daredevil, Luke Cage,
Jessica Jones and
Iron Fist. Yeah, I hated Iron Fist, but this is directly from the MCU. Even though they say that those shows were also in the same universe, this is actually a lot closer because it stars the characters of Scarlet Witch and Vision.
Yeah,
played by Paul Bettany and Elizabeth Olsen, the best of Olsens. And which, I don't think a lot of people know that she's sister of the Olsen twins.
Yeah, that actually came up when my wife and I were watching this, and she was like, "Oh my gosh, I've totally forgot that they even had other siblings." Mm-hmm. And I was like, "Yeah, I never knew either." So that's a revelation to me. But no, I thought it was great, and honestly, for two characters that I had absolutely no investment in, I was surprised, just kind of baffled by the entire existence of this particular series. But I'm curious to know, 30-second elevator pitch. What is this show?
So this show, it's a mystery, and I'm trying to stay offline. I'm trying not to figure out anything, but basically what the audience sees is a half-hour-ish long sitcom with a live studio audience, which was actually filmed in a live studio audience for the first episode or two, where it's a sort of I Love Lucy type of setting between Vision and Scarlet Witch in a household that seems to be in the 50s. It's in black and white. And they are supposed to be acting like regular people trying to hide their superpowers from the outside world in order to live a normal life.
Which is a very kind of comic book-ish sort of premise. And yeah, it is very much reminiscent of I Dream of Jeannie and other 1950s and 60s sitcoms, which I was surprised how much it committed to. That's, more discussion to come, but yeah, you nailed the main premise. There are a couple of little hooks in the first two episodes that there is a greater kind of spooky sort of sub-narrative going on beneath the little comedy anthology.
Yes, if you haven't, that would be my elevator pitch to someone that never watched an MCU film. But if you've watched all the MCU films, you will be very, very confused at why this is happening. But that's still the same pitch. But slowly, all of a sudden, because you are wondering what the hell is going on, because I guess we have to kind of spoil it. Oh wait, are we doing the you haven't seen MCU discussion, or you have seen
Let's
MCU
just
discussion?
Assume that you've seen MCU. I think that for the most part, this does a surprisingly good job of introducing anybody who hasn't watched the MCU movies to just accept the show all on its own. It's nicely self-contained in that way. But yeah, it is very clear that it exists within a larger universe.
Yes, and like I said, if you haven't, it's a refresher course. The main refresher that you need to remember is that the last time that you see Vision's character was in Infinity War, where he dies at the end by the hand of Thanos, and he does not return. Nope. But all of a sudden in this television show, he returns with no explanation whatsoever. And they both seem to not have any memory of the events that happened whatsoever.
Yeah, so that's kind of the uncanny aspect for the viewer who is familiar with these characters, because right? If somebody's been following the series, they know that Vision dies at the end of Infinity War. And then it's also just like they're both fish out of water characters, and it plays greatly with breaking the fourth wall, given that not only do we, the viewers, not know why the characters are in the setting, but the characters don't. So they're just as confused as the viewer is. And it really plays in that space, both in the greater mystery and in the contained little comedies. Like the first episode, Wanda and Vision have a heart marked on their calendar, and they both go, "Oh my gosh, do you know what day it is?" And then both of them are like, "I don't." What? We have to be celebrating something. What are we celebrating today? So
they're trying to figure it out. Is our anniversary? Is it this? Is it that? Right. But they can't figure it out.
They know that they're married. They know that they have a house, and that Vision has a job as an accountant, and that they have these kind of like stereotypical 1950s sitcom roles. But otherwise, they understand that like they have some kind of greater existence, but they don't know what it is.
Yeah,
and neither does the viewer.
No, you can't. I mean, I don't even think they reveal their location. I mean, definitely not the location of whatever world they're in, but like me and my friend Josh watched it via watch party, because in this COVID world, that's like one of the only ways you can watch it with friends. And so you can control it by like pausing it and everything. And I'm trying not to pause it so many times, but me and him are dying to figure out what's going on. And I could not find many clues, but you can't figure out where the location is. They can't. I shouldn't jump the gun at the end, but you know just about as much as they do, even though they're living a life. For instance, one of the only things that we know about Vision is that he's a very fast typer, and that's why he has a very great job.
Yeah,
but he doesn't know what he does.
He's literally a machine, which is something that, again, it's funny how it's established in this in much more direct and funny ways than in the Marvel movies, because he's kind of a machine, but he's also kind of has like ghost-like superpowers where he can just like walk through walls and stuff. He can disguise himself to look human, and all of these are just kind of like given, and it's understood that that's just because that's who Vision is. But there are the fun little again throwback animation bits, like the intro has this kind of corny Jetsons like introduction, and in the second episode he eats some gum, and there's like animation of the gum getting stuck in his gears inside of him and everything, and it's like for some reason I really liked how reductionist and silly that was, given how like lofty the character of Vision is in the cinematic universe. And I think
in the cinematic universe, his character is so confusing. Yeah. I remember that it took me like maybe the third, because his character is introduced in Avengers 2 Age of Ultron. And in order to understand him, for me, I had to watch that movie about like 3 times, mostly because the first time I was very, very bored. I appreciated it more watching it. But in any case, yeah, he's a robot, basically. He is an AI mixed with another AI that's in the body of a robot, basically. That's like the non-comic book nerd explanation to not make you scratch your head.
Yeah, but, and to explain also, Wanda, or Scarlet Witch, basically just kind of has like superpowers. She can move stuff around through the air and whatnot. Telekinesis, it's probably something explained some other way in Age of Ultron, but it doesn't matter, because again, this kind of like reduces all of the what you need to know into a very like visual language, which I thoroughly enjoyed. I know that we're kind of a bit far into just description of what the show is, but in just like my quick pitch of recommend it, don't recommend it, like it, don't like it. This one caught me really off guard with how much I liked it. Every time I think that I'm just done with Marvel and like I'm burnt out on it, they bring something like this to the table, and I'm like, this is completely unlike their typical fare, and it's goofy and self-aware and weird, and I just so want it to continue going that direction. I want it to just stay weird. I want it to unravel this mystery. I want Marvel to be not an action series, to be like this kind of silly science fiction.
You want what most people that are fans of the series do not want. I want what you want as well, because I'm reading online, and like when it first came out, it's got like a 9.4 on IMDb, hours into release. And, you know, actual like critics are raving about it. Then the fans start watching it. They're like, I hate this. This is boring. I hate sitcoms. I hate this. I hate that. Why aren't they kicking ass? Why aren't they doing this? And I love it. When the first day it came out, which was last Friday, I went to work and my friend didn't. I told my friend, do not mention one word about the show. I haven't watched it yet. He goes, oh, and he's like, all I got to say is I don't like it. You'd love it. I hate it. I'm like, why didn't you like it? He goes, I don't know if you know this, but it's like a sitcom. I'm like, yeah, I know. And I tried to explain to him what I thought, because the show is turning out exactly how I thought it was going to turn out, that it's evolving very slowly. And it's actually going a little faster than I thought, but we'll get to that later. But he, as the day progressed, he's like, I don't know, maybe I like it. I guess I kind of like it. And then he rewatched it and he told me the next day, he's like, you know what? I actually love it. It's actually really, really cool. And I think it's going to end up in a cool direction. So I do think that the two-dimensional fans of bright lights, big colors, no on screen, no likey, will actually end up enjoying it a little more, because they are seeing the depth of where the MCU can go in a world like this without flashing lights or anything, even though I think those flashing lights are yet to come.
Yeah, I think so too. And honestly, that'll be one of the reasons that I'm just kind of curious to see where this goes, is the cultural touchstone that is Marvel. But also things have been a little bit quiet from Marvel for a bit, given the past year, and that they typically release blockbusters. So this is just kind of out of left field and so far very refreshing. But returning back to kind of walking through premise and everything, there are 2 episodes available right now, and in the first one, the whole get up is that like we said, Wanda and Vision are trying to figure out what they're supposed to be celebrating. And Vision kind of deduces while he's at work that his boss, whose last name happens to be Hart, is supposed to have a like dinner with Wanda and Vision at their home. And Vision looks at the calendar and goes, that must have been it, because we wrote a heart on it. The heart must have been referring to my boss. So the hijinks ensue as Wanda is trying to, she thought that it was some kind of romantic occasion, so she hasn't prepared anything. And then the two of them are trying to distract the boss and cook this fancy meal all at the same time. And there are a bunch of supernatural hijinks and kind of like playing in 2 spaces at once. Wacky things are going on while the boss's back is turned. And it's fun. It's
super fun.
Yeah. I mean, it is a little bit corny in a very deliberate sense, but I never found myself like just laughing at parody. I found that there were actual enjoyable jokes in this setup, which surprised me. It's very much kind of tongue-in-cheek pastiche. And while they're both having dinner with the boss and the boss's wife, the boss starts choking on something, and it goes into this incredibly like surreal moment where his wife is laughing hysterically and trying to pretend that it's not happening. And Wanda just stares at Vision saying, do something. And the music gets super tense and weird. And Vision basically reaches into the guy's throat using magic and pulls out a chunk of food.
Mm-hmm.
And then it kind of goes on with the show as regular. So,
yeah,
like you said, it's slowly working into something greater while still, at least for now, fully committing to the sitcom anthology storytelling.
And what's excellent about this is, so what's the camera style called with sitcoms?
Single cam.
Single cam. So the entire first episode is single cam, and this storyline of we got to cook dinner for the boss and we have to impress the boss is a recycled storyline that, as you said, is parody, but which makes it better for this because it's like putting a hat on a hat. It's like, hey, this is a silly premise, but we're making fun of a type of TV show, which is also confusing you even more. And the fact that we're doing it in a corny way is in itself even more funny, at least in my eyes. But it's a recycled joke that you see recycled plot that you see all the time. And they do it fantastically. Not only do you have the supernatural happening, but you also have the quirky neighbor played by Katherine Hahn, who I love. And I didn't know that she was on the show until I watched 10 seconds of a preview and I shut it off real quick. So I'm like, I'm done. I'm good. I'm watching it. That's good enough for me. But the first time that things get really serious and that we kind of step away from the single cam is when the boss starts choking. The music stops, the laughter stops, and it is a regular camera that is pushing into the characters. One is the boss's wife, who is stop, and everything's like kind of scary. And it's pushing into all of these characters. And once Vision finally saves the boss's life, I can't remember what the line is, but it's something like, well, we should get going. And the laughs start and the single cams resume. And it's just like a little hint of, yeah, this isn't only just a sitcom. Don't worry, we know. Mm-hmm. And it's super, super cool. And I love that they did it at the very end of that episode.
Yeah, and then at the very end of both of these episodes, or at least I think both of the episodes, the camera pans out through an old like TV screen, and we see like somebody, we don't know who, but somebody watching this unfold. So there is that framing device of this is clearly something going on within like an alternate kind of fantasy within something greater in the show, which is probably what's going to be, everything's going to be building towards. And we know that at least from the trailer. I had no intention to watch this at first. So I popped on a trailer and I was like, okay, we'll just see what this is about. And there is more of that Marvel, like you said, flashing lights and, sci-fi and 16:9 ratios rather than the 4:3 that the first two episodes are shot in, which is also fun. But I was really surprised at the restraint practiced throughout these first two episodes, that it's like there are a little bit of hints there that something bigger is going to go on, but they really do commit to the sitcom setting for at least the beginning of the show, while also understanding that, there's something bigger around the corner.
Absolutely. And we forgot to mention too, we know that, well, actually, no, we don't know. There are actual commercials in the show. Not actual commercials, I'm sorry. Commercials. Full
commercials. One of them is for like Stark Industries, like toaster or something.
Yes. Yeah.
Which was fun.
I guess that's the first time things got spooky, because they're waiting for the toast to toast, and they're like, and now we wait. Right. And they get just really serious and they stare for a while, and it's fucking scary. I'm like, what am I watching?
That's how I feel whenever I wait for the toast. It's like, it's just my daily jump scare.
Oh yeah, yeah, absolutely. Every time I make toast, if someone else is in the room, I say, and now I wait and I stare into their eyes until that toast is done. It's a very normal thing. But it was super cool. I love faux commercials too. Remind me, I gotta tell you something after this about faux commercials. But anyways, it's completely invested in making you believe that you are watching a television sitcom. It has all of the elements of that with these little breadcrumbs, which is why one of my theories is that they're actually stuck in a television. That's what I think the alternate reality is.
Yeah, I love the science fiction direction where it's going, or at least I think it's really promising right now. There's just a little bit that it kind of gets into more with tone than anything else. But I do also want to, again, emphasize how much I was into the sitcom setup. And part of that is just how well Elizabeth Olsen and Paul Bettany play off each other. Like Paul Bettany's,
they're excellent together.
Yeah, Paul Bettany's character is a total 180 from where he was at in the movies, because Vision was very stoic and philosophical and everything. And in the show, he has just a manic comedy in his performance, which is delightful. Given that Paul Bettany's demeanor is very dapper and English. But the second episode, when Wanda and Vision get roped into a a magic trick for this community day,
like talent show.
Yeah, exactly. The whole segment was just delightful because Vision has eaten gum, and the effects of it are it slows him down and he acts drunk. But the way that Paul Bettany like leans into that for all of this, and the whole gag is that Vision is giving away that he and Wanda have superpowers, and Wanda is using her superpowers to counteract his and make it seem like,
which is
it's
genius.
all part of the trick. Oh, like look, there was somebody hiding in the disappearing woman casket the whole time, and it's just delightful. And it's like, this is one nice little contained story, which is super goofy, but it's being executed in a way that's so like enthusiastic. I think it is
extremely enthusiastically, and the way that Paul Bettany's acting, like Elizabeth Olsen's great in this too. It's actually kind of rare. Her character of Wanda is, especially in the beginning when she had a Russian accent. She was in the beginning of the MCU wise. That character is very serious, revenge, all that. So it's nice to see her be funny. But for Paul Bettany's actually, if you think about it, been in the MCU ever since the beginning, because he was Jarvis.
Yeah.
So he was always like, he'd have some quips with Tony Stark, but you didn't see him for one. And then when you see him, like, him trying to understand things was kind of robotic, like, oh, this is a fridge or some shit like that. But in this, it's really cool seeing him like, oh, off to work. Like, it's like, yeah, man. Because also the general audience, I don't believe, know who Paul Bettany is. They just know him as Vision.
Right.
But like, I've seen him in so many other things. And the first thing where I realized, like, oh, I like this actor, I need to find out his name, was A Knight's Tale, actually, where he plays a comedic role. And I totally forgot about that until now.
Yeah, I don't know if I've ever seen him in anything else. I knew him from the Marvel Cinematic Universe. And, like, once I started watching this, I was going through his whole backlog to just be like, okay, what else has he been in? Because I need to know. Like, I was so enjoying his performance in this that I was like, I've got to I must have seen him in something else.
Yeah, but I think if you go through his IMDb, you'll realize that you have like A Beautiful Mind, Master and Commander, but most of these are like really serious things.
Yeah.
But it's cool to not only see an actor that people don't quite understand what his range is for general audiences, to not only display that, but to display it in a character that is very restrained from being this fun, but they can have fun with him anyway. So that it's really, really cool. But the storyline of him being drunk because of the gum inside his gears, which also that animation is great. But what's cool is they like, and they would do it in a sitcom. They're like, we're going to dumb it down for you. The gum is fucking them up. Even though like me and Josh were watching it and I'm like, yeah, but can't he like reach in himself and like grab the gum out? But it doesn't matter because it's just fun that they're showing this. And there might be something way more complicated going on than we actually know. But in any case,
for the sake of that storyline, it didn't matter. They didn't need to over-explain it.
Yeah, absolutely. And also, they're trying. Their characters are trying to not exactly like escape from the world that they're, to us, obviously trapped in, but they're by nature trying to do more because something is amiss. For instance, for Paul Bettany, for the first episode, he's trying to get beat out of his boss, not literally, but like, and what it is that we do again? It's like
that's right.
And business. Yeah. And in the second episode, they're
trying to tease out of the other characters because Elizabeth or Wanda is doing the same thing to her neighbor.
Hold on, I'll get ahead of myself there because the other thing that Paul Bettany does is, how's the episode open up? A tree hits the thing and they're scared that like there's crime going on basically. So he joins the neighborhood watch, and he's trying to do serious like, so is there anything going on that we should know? Like blah, blah, blah. Like, oh yeah, his cooking. Ha ha ha. And he's like, no, seriously, like we should be talking about these bigger picture things. And all these other characters are trying to keep it contained to the fun. They're trying to contain these characters. But yeah, Wanda, she's noticing even more like the helicopter. The first, I think is that the first thing in color, or was it a red flashing light from the toaster?
Yeah, you know what? I'm trying to remember. I think that there was one other thing in episode 1 that was in color. I don't remember it.
I think it was the flashing light of the toaster in the commercial.
Yeah, you're right.
In any case, this is this toy helicopter that she finds in the bushes is on display, and she's staring at it for a very long time, and she tosses it back in. We can't forget that thing is back in the bushes that they didn't bring back. But anyways, she is also trying to figure out what's going on through this other parenting organization. Do you remember exactly what that was? It's who's setting up the talent show.
Yeah, I don't remember. It's something to do with like a neighborhood organization.
Yeah, and she's trying to impress because her neighbor, Catherine Hahn's character, is like, well, you got to impress this person if you want to know these answers, because she runs this whole neighborhood, and if you get on her good side, she'll make you. If you get on her bad side, she'll break you. And so she's trying to impress her by like another really cool plot line is trying to act like a normal person. Like this person that they're trying to impress is drinking tea a certain way, and Wanda's trying to drink tea that certain way, and it's just a lot of fun. But they're trying to act normal when they can't, and it's great.
Yeah, and it doesn't take too long for the show to let on that, like, yeah, it's not just that some things are a little amiss, but there is some greater threat in this little fantasy world. Because at the end of episode 2, there's this very like Twin Peaks-esque like reveal of a guy who comes up out of the sewer wearing like a beekeeper's outfit, and he's like surrounded by bees
surrounding him too.
And Wanda her reaction isn't just that like, oh my gosh, there's danger here. She's just like, no. I remember her saying that at the end. I'm like, that is not what I was expecting. I was expecting like, horrified reaction and then cut to black. But something about it sparks her memory, and she's just not having it, which is another thing that just got me really excited for what might happen, because I don't know, that reaction again reminded me very much of something out of Twin Peaks or some other kind of like surrealist sci-fi fantasy stuff. So
you ever see Funny Games?
I have not.
You should see Funny Games. It's written and directed by Michael Haneke. I'm not sure, but they did an American remake, which was, he wrote and directed the American remake, and it's basically a shot by shot remake of the original film. Super weird that the original writer director is like, I want to remake it, but even though I'm Russian, or maybe he remade it, and there's an infamous scene. I guess I can't say anymore, but there's a very similar scene, and it reminds me of that. If anyone's listening that knows what I'm talking about, they know exactly what I'm talking about. But I completely forgot about that. So she is definitely in some sort of control, but definitely out of some sort of control, because the other thing was when she's talking to the head of the neighbor, they're listening to the radio, and you hear I don't think familiar voice say, Wanda, who's doing this to you? Who's doing this to you, Wanda? And I have no idea who it is, but I love it. And we listened to it a couple times. We're like, is it Bruce Banner? Is it this person? I don't know. But also the friend that she met, who on IMDb's not Catherine Hahn, who plays Agnes, who is the fun neighbor, who I think is in on whatever's going on. But she also meets Monica. I don't remember her introducing herself as Monica, but she's the one that ends up in the box in the talent show, and she's like, oh, how the hell did I end up here? But I think that she's trying to save them as well. I know I'm just talking theories right now, but
I could see that.
I just don't know what's going to happen. But the beekeeper thing, and also, what do you think of because the talent show is
For the Children chant.
What did that remind you of?
Oh, Hot Fuzz. The great or good.
Yes, the great or good. Yeah, and I said that over and over again, and Josh is like, why are you saying that? I'm like, Hot Fuzz? He goes, oh, right. I'm like, you don't know what I'm talking about, do you? He's like, no.
You don't have
and
to.
I honestly think they bit off of that a lot. But that seems to be maybe the godly, the thing that's controlling this, their end game. No pun intended. For them to have children, because they have she's pregnant at the end. That's
another very surreal thing, because in one scene they're interacting, Wanda and Vision are interacting, and like they're just kind of normally talking to each other. I think that they're like coming back together, and Vision says something like, you know, we're going to be fine. I don't remember what it is, but she's not pregnant in one shot, and then it goes to a close up, and then it's like she all of a sudden remembers that she's pregnant, and it goes back to that wide shot, and she has a belly. And I'm like, this is again just very dreamlike and playing in a space that I like mysteries to go. It kind of reminds me also a little bit of some of like Star Trek Next Generation kind of plots, or some of their arcs.
Yeah, I love those where they get stuck on a planet where they're like under some sort of hypnosis. I think of regular. Yeah,
they're hypnotized, or they're in a dream, or they're in like the hollow chambers or stuff like that. So it's all of this is mystery wise is very reminiscent of those things that I really enjoy, and particularly how I enjoy that execution of a mystery. I just like that it's not indulging in that so much that it's leaving the premise of this being a sitcom by the wayside. So far, it has like balanced both of those just enough to me, in terms of the first two episodes, where there's a clear understanding of like what I'm getting into without showing the cards too quickly.
Yeah, and even though they're still doing it in a slow pace, it's evolving quite quicker, because once she is, and I think I think that this is the only way that she can see Vision, and she doesn't want to leave. And like when she saw the beekeeper, she's like, no. And she goes back to regular. And since everyone says for the children so much, maybe she made herself pregnant to indulge this world to continue being in this universe. But in any case, she becomes pregnant. And they're like, oh, you're pregnant. And then everything starts to turn into color, which, by the way, another thing that I think of these two shows, Pleasantville. This show is very much like Pleasantville. Have you seen that?
No, you mentioned that recently. I haven't gotten around to watching it.
Oh, it's with Tobey Maguire. It's actually very, very good. I can't remember what the plot was exactly, but something somewhat similar in this. But anyways, so now everything's in color. So what I'm assuming is going to happen is that they're going to go through the basic television series in each decade. So now, from now on, so sadly, I think that they're going to walk away from the sitcom thing. Mm-hmm. However, they have to go through the 70s and 80s first, because you need like your Saved by the Bell type thing. But I hope it gets to like, I'm excited for the 90s because I think it's going to get more like Turner and Hooch-esque type thing. I don't know.
Sure.
Not Turner and Hooch. It just sounds like Turner and Hooch just sounds right. But
when you sometimes just use like a word and you don't understand what the word's actual definition is, but it feels right.
Oh yeah, I do that all the situations. I'll do like, oh man, I'm so hungry. I'm morose. Like, you're really sad. Like, no, I'm really, really hungry. I'm morose. Like, that sounds right, but I don't think that is right. But no, I'm excited to see what it does. I do think that it's going to continue to evolve in a really, really cool way. I didn't know, though, that it was actually filmed in a live studio audience for those 2 episodes, and I don't know how long that's going to go on. And the clues that they gave us, I'm not quite sure. Mm-hmm. They're really good at the mystery.
Yep. Yeah. Is this being released on a weekly schedule?
It is a weekly schedule. So usually what I've noticed with television these days is the premiere are 2 episodes with mostly anything. I believe Mandalorian did the same thing. And we went from, because even though we're, especially with the pandemic and everything, we're coming to the age of streaming. When streaming first did it, especially Netflix, they would release the whole series at once. And it seems like that they're going backwards into a weekly schedule, like they did with The Boys, with The Mandalorian, with several series. So I believe that they're doing it again. I just wish that they were doing 2 episodes at a time. But I think that it's going to be 1 episode from now on. It's just usually when they start a new series, it's 2 episodes to like, hey, here's your bonus for waiting for so long. Because this was supposed to come out such a long time ago, too.
Huh. I didn't know anything about this, and all of a sudden here it is, and by golly, I'm excited for it.
I'm super stoked, but I'm impatient.
Surprised me. I haven't really cared about Marvel in a while, and this comes out of left field, and it's like, oh hey, I'm really looking forward to a Marvel thing again.
I'm looking so forward to. I think this is going, besides Endgame, this is going to be my favorite project because, as I've said billion times before, I love mindfucky things, and this is one that I don't think I'll be prepared for very well.
Well, cool. Sounds like a pretty ringing endorsement from both of us. Mm-hmm. I don't know.
And this is from someone who loves the world, and this is from someone who
is just done with it.
Tolerates the world.
Yeah, it's such a tepid thing on my palate these days. But now, they can pull it off. I mean, they hauled in Taika Waititi for the 3rd Thor movie, so I guess anything's really possible at this point.
Absolutely.
I'm kind of surprised that Disney, who is so concerned with keeping everything enjoyable for everyone, managed to release this weird little thing that is just kind of odd and quirky.
Absolutely. And what's fun, and another thing that's funny about audiences' expectations is people are excited. We're excited mostly for Falcon and Winter Soldier, but I was excited for this. But I know, like, all the haters of this show are like, I just want Falcon and the Winter Soldier. But I'm glad that we're stuck
You'll
with
get
this.
that. Like, I mean, it's a built-in audience. They can release anything that has Marvel in it now, and they'll get, crazy numbers watching it. I'm just glad
it doesn't matter.
This one
you can
got
show
a chance.
Rock for 45 minutes, and if they say if they have that MCU opening, it's going to make 1 billion views.
Right.
And they're going to look at each frame, even though it's very obvious that it's a picture of a rock, and they're going to pause each frame and like look at each pixel and see if something's amiss.
They're going to wait until after the credits to see if there's another rock that they remember from some other series.
For real, like, little do you know, this is the 7th Infinity Stone. By the way, this show, there was supposed to be, the original plan was at the end credits of Endgame, which is nothing except for the tink, tink, tink of Iron Man making his first suit in the cave. Instead of that, it was supposed to be a little teaser for this show. So they've been planning that for a while. But also, when I'm watching the show, I wait till after the credits just in case. And there's nothing so far. This series, our MCU has not ruined credits. It actually makes me watch the credits, which is something that's pretty admirable.
Right, or at least the first 2 minutes.
One thing I wanted to mention was Matt Shackman's the director, and I think he directs all the episodes, but I do think this show is going to turn into not a sitcom, but his plethora specifically is of It's Always Sunny in Philadelphia. So he has a plethora of television on his back, and I think that's one reason this single camera comedy is so close to the real thing.
Cool. Well, I'm excited. You want to wrap this one up?
Sure. So this will probably release first before our... You know what's funny?
They don't need to know that we have another show. This could be the... Who are you, Tony? What a serendipitous occasion, we having met today and both having seen WandaVision and loved it so much, we could have this conversation.
I think this should be our spin-off show. We'll call it like the accidental run-in or something, where it's literally like, you know what I'll do? I'll do all of it. I'll make a sound effect of us bumping into each other. Like, oh, we bumped into each other. Let's have a conversation. But I don't know.
Yeah.
All this recording and stuff though, like it's so fun to get back into, and like I don't have the title of what I'm doing, and like it's evolving and shit, and it's awesome to see your face once a week. But I love that we're trying to continue our mandatory party hats. And it feels like a long time, but this is like the shortest break that we've had not filming something, and it felt like an eternity. So I want to keep that rolling.
It was
for
pretty
sure.
much like 3 or 4 years. So hey, here we are, back in the saddle.
And all of our college friends are like, what the fuck? They're doing it like crazy. Little did they know we would have done it like crazy if someone would have the right equipment just once.
Well, hey, we know other people who are working on the sets of like NBC premiere shows. So
oh yeah, they're doing great. Shout out to them. Good shit for making it. And please survive the COVID to make more. Yeah. But to wrap things up, thank you for listening to our little run-in with WandaVision. I'm Tony.
And I'm Dan.
And tune in next time. Yeah, I love that.